Real Talk. My name is Tiara.
I'm Tiffany.
And I'm Ron.
And today we are here to discuss a new series. We are talking Reasonable Doubt. It is a new show that has premiered on Hulu, and we are loving it so far. So the season finale just aired last week. And so we wanted to talk about the entire season as a whole, since this is a new show and many people are still getting introduced to it. So the synopsis of Reasonable Doubt is basically Jax Stewart. She juggles work, family, friends, and a complicated personal life as a brilliant and fearless defense attorney in Los Angeles who bucks the justice system every chance she gets. So I read that and I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. But then you add to it the all-star cast. You have Emma Yahtzee Coronel taking the lead as Jax, and then you add on to that Pauletta Washington. I was like, oh yes. And then you got some eye candy with Michael Ealy and Sean Patrick Thomas, McKinley Freeman, Christian Keys,
Shannon Kane. Don't forget her too. When you talk about eye candy, don't forget her too.
Okay, Ron, you got the ladies on lock. I was just going over the fellas.
Yeah, right. She was holding down.
Yeah, I know you were, but I just wanted to make sure that
Christian Keys.
Yep, Christian. I was like, okay, so we got something to look at here. And then I heard that Kerry Washington had directed some episodes, and you add to that Larry Wilmore, who was producing the show. And I was like, okay, this is going to be good. So
Kerry Washington's executive producer too.
Yeah, I was like, you got me there. So as soon as I heard about all of that, the people that were involved in the show, I was like, this is a recipe for an amazing series. So I was really excited to watch. And it was written and created by Ramala Muhammad. And so she did a phenomenal job with this first season.
Yes,
so if you guys want to dig in and start talking about the series, Jax, the lead character, is a trip.
I'm gonna let Tiffany take off because
you're gonna let me? No, because you have some issues with Jax. So I want to give you the floor, and then I respond to your.
I see. So you want to go on defense? Okay. So let me.
Yeah, I do. I want to go on defense.
Okay. So first of all, Emmy, you did a wonderful job playing.
Yes, she did.
Yes.
I love you. You are a beautiful woman, hands down. I mean to tell you, anybody would get broken up behind you. But let me say this: I think what I see in you in this character, you are a man eater, baby. I'm not sure if season 2 you will carry on that kind of ferocious appetite, but you got to slow it down because you are, look, when you're that beautiful and that smart, you can't play with men's feelings. I'm trying to tell you, you can't do it because anybody can fall in love with you.
Oh, she had him hooked.
Oh, you had everybody hooked. I was hooked.
I agree with that.
Sitting there watching TV, and I'm like, oh God, this one's fine. But you're a man eater. This is how I see it. I can't say it any other way.
They did set the stage for us, though, by letting us know that Jax was ethically challenged.
Exactly.
So,
ethically, I ain't see a challenging part in her body. I mean, that was fine. But I'm sorry.
She is ethically challenging. Ethically challenged.
I
believe that the way she.
Well, that kind of conflicts when you're talking about a lawyer. Right. You're supposed to uphold ethics and justice and everything like that. So to be ethically challenged in your personal life, but you have to uphold ethics in your career, it's kind of like a
oxymoron.
Right? Yeah. So I was like, wow, that's an interesting character flaw.
Look, and a lot of them are like that, though. Listen. I mean, not all lawyers, but I'm just saying some of them are ethically challenged.
Okay, I'm on the 20-yard line about to score, so you better put your defense up, Tiff. So what you got?
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, I think we really should have started with what the purpose. People who have not watched Reasonable Doubt,
right?
We should have talked about the case and stuff first.
Well,
and everything. But
I think we did it right. I think that at least identifying who, because when you get into the case, and you see just how sharp she really is, the question still remains: is she a man eater or just misunderstood?
We can get to that, but I'm just saying for people who have not seen the show, like, the onset of the show basically talks about this case with Sean Patrick Thomas's character Braden and stuff, and how she's introduced to them and how he ends up on trial for murder, all that other stuff. But as far as Jax is concerned, I agree with you. She is ethically challenged. I do believe that her personality and things, the reason why she is the way she is because she has daddy issues, for one, daddy issues, and number two, she was sexually assaulted by the stepfather, and the mother had seemed to, maybe she didn't know all the details or whatever, but she took him back after he, she said, oh, it was because he was drinking and that's why he climbed into the bed with her and stuff like that. For a mother to reconcile with someone who is an abuser, a possible abuser, that, a child is supposed to have protection. And on both sides, she was let down by her parents and stuff. And so with sexual assault, I know we talked about this, Tier, last week. We were talking about off camera, and we talked about the story Addicted and everything, and how that woman kind of went off the deep end and had a sexual addiction with men and everything. And it was because when they found out at the end, when she had gone under hypnosis and gone to counseling, that she had been sexually assaulted as a child. And then her mother didn't deal with it. They just moved her out of state and she suppressed it. And it came out in other areas of her life. And so that does happen with victims and stuff. And not making excuses for everything Jax did, because Jax was a trip.
Right.
Jax did leave. She did lead people on, especially Michael Ealy's character.
Yeah, But I want to just kind of piggyback on something you said about sexual assault and how it may lead to sexual promiscuity with women. But I think it can go either way, because while there are other women that totally shy away from any kind of sexual or loving relationship because of those attacks, and the fact that Jax was able to really lift herself up, become a brilliant lawyer, you would think that those ethical challenges that she had at home would have somehow been able to, not manifest itself in the fashion that it has. So, I say that because, yes, she was sexually assaulted. Yes, her mother didn't protect her in the vein that you would think a mother would under those circumstances. But yet again, she is a lawyer and she knows the law. She knows right from wrong. And so I don't necessarily equate her ethical or challenges with her, her, I can't put it any other way, impudent lifestyle. I just can't.
She never faced up to it either, because think about it. All those years, she didn't even tell her own husband. He had no idea. And they had been around him and the family. Her daughter had been around him. Her daughter was sitting on his lap. Like, all these things, she never told him. And she didn't confront him until that final face-off when he passed away. But, that had a power over her and everything. And listen, 70% of people who had sexual assaults and things like that don't even come forward.
Right.
And so the kind of situation we're in with viewers of the show is you're kind of seeing Jax as a married woman. So she is married to this super fine man, and they have this beautiful lifestyle. They both seem very successful in their own careers, and they live in this, beautiful house, 2 children. It's like they're living a dream. And so it's kind of like, okay, so why is there all this sexual promiscuity outside of the marriage? Because we see Jax flirting with the bodyguard that was hired for her, which eventually leads to her sleeping with him. And then you also see she has the fling with Michael Ealy's character Damon, who was a previous client of hers. And it's like, so why are you sabotaging your happy house for, your own?
Well, they weren't happy. They were already separated as the show started.
Well, yeah, so they were separated because of her
marital issues.
Right.
Oh, they were separated because she wasn't making him the priority.
Right. And also the kids now. My boy, what's his name? Spencer? Yeah,
Spencer needs to be jacked up.
Okay, so we got to put a hands list on him. He gets the hands because he
gets the hands.
Basically he mistreated his mother throughout the whole daggone episode. All 8 or 9 episodes. I didn't really care the way he dealt with his mom. He was a little, and then Daddy should have kind of went upside the back of his head a couple times, but that didn't happen.
But you do see the effects of having extramarital affairs and how it has that feeling over the children who are kind of stuck in the middle. And so that's how the kids felt. And it's like, so you see Jax, like I said, a woman who seemingly has it all. And here she is kind of self-sabotaging. And it seems like she comes off very selfish and self-centered because, her husband is pleading with her, spend time with your family. Her daughter gets her first cycle and she's not even there to help her through it until much later on down the line. And so it's like she's missing all of these important milestones in her family, and she has a loving husband pleading with her for more attention. But she's so career driven that she cannot put them as a priority. And so it's kind of like you love Jax, but you kind of like, have this disdain toward her too because of what she's doing to her family. And it does come off as self-sabotage, which goes back to, what you were saying about sexual assault victims that may or may not have coped with what happened to them. And so some of her self-sabotage could be a result of her, young childhood where she was sexually assaulted. And that's kind of what we're led to believe. Like later on in the series, you finally realize why she might be acting out the way she does, which I don't want to say it justifies her behavior because, you do have to accept responsibility and not pass that hurt on to other people.
Well, look at Steve Harvey's daughter and what they're trying to, make her out of. I mean, here's a woman that doesn't need any money from any man. And, and she's dating and when she's done with him, she's they want to
moving on. She dating like y'all.
Yeah, I mean, like y'all. No, not, well, okay. Let me say this. With today's woman who is educated, great job, they don't need a man in terms of financial support. And what we see with her, daddy's wealthy, so quite naturally, she doesn't need anybody's money. And yet she's dating.
She has her own career. She's modeling.
Yeah, she's doing a lot.
Skincare line.
Exactly. So I equate her and Jax as really being under the same umbrella. Because, because Jax really doesn't need, with the exception that Jax has a husband. Now, the question is, she has this, first of all, you married a lawyer and, you would expect that she was going to be a great one. You don't go into a marriage thinking that your wife is going to be a mediocre lawyer. You expect greatness from her. So if that's the case, my brother, you have to step up and step out whenever there's a need to do so. You can't just assume that she's going to be able to juggle the family and being a great lawyer. Men have for years, centuries, gone to work while the woman had to stay home and manage a household. And I don't see a problem in flipping that scenario. If she's a great lawyer, and you might have a great job as well, but if she's that great lawyer and she's doing it and putting in that work, you got to put in that work at home. It's just that simple.
But it's also a slap in the face because Lewis, her husband, he did mention that he put his career on the back burner a little bit. And he said that he was willing to do that for a while so that she could excel in her career. However, it's a slap in the face when you don't have time for your family, yet you have time for all of these extramarital affairs.
There you go. Right.
So That's where I was like,
but she still knew her kids. Like they, like she was, she wasn't as present as she needed to be, but she still was like, because you saw when she was spending time with her daughter and stuff, and she was like, oh, we're gonna watch so and so. Like even though she missed the cycle or whatever, she was delayed with that. She still knew what to do. Like when she was calling and talking to Lewis, and something happened, and she was like, "Oh, give her fiber pills." Da, 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 da. So she still was present. She still knew her children. It wasn't like she was just totally an absent parent. And the other thing that I was gonna say is that the friend, when Lewis went to the boxing show or whatever, JT, and there was another friend, the brother that was giving the sound counsel. I was like, okay, I like this brother. The brother that was like, hey, don't stay here too long. Don't, like, pretty much like, don't get no trouble. Why don't you pursue couples therapy? And he said something that was really profound. He said something like you knew all these things too about Jax when you married her, and then you're expecting a change or something like that too. Now, Lewis was not wrong to ask her to prioritize their family. Like that's that goes without saying.
But how do you do that?
What the brother said made a lot of sense too. Like you knew these things about her when you got.
And that's what I said, and that's what I'm saying. Will said that. I think his name is Will. Toby. What's his name?
Yeah, I forgot the brother's name, but I was like, okay, he can get the game ball for me, because he was speaking truth.
He was, but I think that when people get married and you believe that things are going to work out in such a way, and that's why you have to be very flexible when you're married or when you get married, because things don't always work out in the way you plan. And you can have two powerful people in terms of wanting that job security and climbing that corporate ladder. But what happens when one climbs faster than the other? And sometimes you have to understand the reality of life, that as a lawyer, she's going to be out quite a bit. I mean, just doing research and trying to put a case together, like with Braden's case, you can't do that on a 9-to-5 basis. You're working day in, day out. And so with that being said, even though, like you said, Tierra, Lewis, had plans of his own, he was going to help her get her thing together, started, and then he'll kick back and get his started. But it just doesn't work out that way. So flexibility is very important in a marriage.
Yeah, that's true. And Lewis has his own faults. He's
a video game developer.
For surveilling her the way that he had been. That was a topic where it was kind of like we discussed off camera about how he had been watching her through the security cameras in the house, and it kind of like they had this resentment brewing between both of them. Lewis was resenting her for not being present and being sneaky, and then she was resenting him for purposely surveilling her and spying and trying to hire security and stuff. And so it's like this.
Okay, y'all know I got something to say about that, but go ahead, Tara. Go ahead. I mean, Tiffany, go ahead. Go ahead, Tiffany.
I did not blame her for him wanting security and stuff because of her lifestyle. I mean, on the outside, in the beginning, towards the end of the series, I really felt sorry for Lewis. I like him. I think he's a good man. But when I first saw him watching her on the cameras and stuff, I did have a reaction to that. And I told you, I was not feeling that, because I was like, okay, that's one thing to protect the home. But I didn't like the spying, because I'm like, you outside the house, but you don't want looking and, watching me on camera or whatever and stuff, especially you watching me on camera, the kids are with you.
And mind you, he voluntarily left the household. He volunteered to separate from Jax. So you, on your own accord, left the household. So you have no rights to spy on me inside of the home that we used to share.
So
I totally disagree. I'm sorry, because look.
Of course you do.
Look, first of all, those cameras were probably up before he left the house. Okay.
I'm pretty sure she was well aware, which I'm not letting her off the hook.
Okay. And when you are having extramarital sex, and then you look up at that camera, If you're a porn star,
I got issues with that. Being spiteful.
Okay, yes. You can call that whatever you want. Now, what I take, what I
not been watching, you wouldn't have seen it.
So
not been watching, you wouldn't have seen it.
That may be true, but
listen. First of all, let me just say that both of them are married. Neither one of them should have been having extramarital affairs. So let's start there. Both of them were dead wrong for having extramarital affairs. But I'm just saying about the cameras. I understand wanting to secure the house. His children are there too. But watching inside the house, like once you leave the home, you don't have rights to the home anymore. You don't. And so you don't have the right to spy.
I don't think he was spying, because to say that Lewis was spying would give some reference to he knew that there may be some extramarital situation or something crooked.
He did know. He saw the interaction with
No. What I'm saying is you have the house, first of all, I don't even know if he knew Jax was home. But the point is, let's just go back from let's take this into consideration. He's home. No. Let's take this into consideration. He's home and he's just surveying the house. Like I would do. I mean, look, I even do that. I got cameras outside in my home and so forth. And every now and again,
you still live in a home. You're not separated. But if you are separated,
but Tip, they separated. They separated. But Tip,
want to survey the household, the outside, the inside, the kids with you. No,
I can't break this. I can't break her. But Tip, I'm saying they separated not as to get a divorce. They separated because they needed some time by themselves. And yes, he left. But he left to keep, keep the home in a sense that there's not too much friction going on. He didn't want to leave and have a lot of friction between.
It's still a separation. He lives in a separate home.
But he's still
that's a separate.
But he has rights to that house, as far as I'm concerned. Because
let me tell you something. Let me speak as a divorced person who has gone through a separation. You are legally married. Let me tell you what my divorce attorney told me, because we have a now grown child. But at the time when we were talking about visitation and this, that, and the other, and there was chatter about when the ex could come over, if he could come unannounced, this, that, and the other. My attorney told me that once the spouse or someone leaves, that they no longer have those rights. That there has to be parameters set. That he had to give me at least 24 hours notice if he was coming or whatever. He had to tell me, he had to clear that with me first. He couldn't just pop up or whatever. You're now outside the home. Yeah, you are still legally married, but once somebody leaves the home, that's you don't have that right and stuff. And so that's why my back was up when I saw the him watching on the video.
Okay. And at that point, he knew that the kids were with him. There was no reason for him to be looking at cameras in the home.
And he used before he even got to the point that that she was cheating with Will, which she was wrong about. She was wrong. But he knew she was horny because he observed her on a video. And what did he do when he saw her? Like he got her off in the car, but didn't finish, which would have pissed me off too. That would have pissed me off, and she was rightfully mad. She was like, really? And got out the car. But he did that because he knew she was horny. And how did he know? Because he watched her on the video.
Yep.
He watched her on the video. And he said, I'm just giving you what you wanted, what you needed. And he knew that because he watched it. So that's where I thought it was he had overstepped.
And they were both wrong. It was a lot of tit for tat going on between them.
Look, and while you brilliantly brought up all of his miscomings, my point to you being is, since they were separated and since he didn't have rights to the house, why didn't she take down the camera?
So she should have. Oh, and you can see he eventually came back to her and said, I'm going to remove the camera.
Right.
Which I appreciated. So that was my only issue with Lewis. Other than that, I feel like Lewis was the victim. He was. I did like by the end of this, I was just like, Jax, this is a good man. Like you tripping
because she pretty much
so
pushed him out the door.
Huh?
She kind of pushed him out the door.
Right. And it took me
because he was trying, and she was like this because she was, she had got demonetized by Michael Ealy, Damon's character.
Yes.
She was demonetized.
What do you mean by that? Demonetized. What do you mean?
The D.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I forgot. I forgot who I was talking to. Go ahead, Tiff. I'm sorry now.
So she was whipped. I'll say that.
Well,
whipped because
he had whipped as well. And so that goes back to Ron's point earlier about being this beautiful, successful woman and roping these men in. I kind of blame her a little bit for how she kind of got them hooked on her, but she did eventually say, look, this is what it is. It's strictly sexual. If you can deal with that, then cool. If not, we can go our separate ways.
Look, my boy was already pee-whipped after that first encounter. He was done.
He said he waited for 16 years.
I mean, come on now, Tim. This brother got locked up for 16 years. Look, wait a minute, hold on. He didn't just get no average pee. He got some 100% genuine fine all around pee that most
people was emotionally attached.
No. I'm just trying to understand. Look, there's good weed and there's great weed. So I mean, and he had that great weed. So what I'm saying is he didn't just get an average woman after 16 years. He got himself
top of the line.
You can't get no higher than that.
But they already had the connection too, because she was in the trenches with him.
Check it out. When he was in jail and she was trying to figure out a way to get him out, all the hand stroking. She built this man up from ground zero.
It did.
To the point at which we know happened at the season finale. So you could say, look, she might have been a little whipped on the D, but I'm gonna tell you right now, brother man, when he first got that taste, he was done.
He was look. I can't even defend her on that because one of the things I knew it. I showed one of my friends she hadn't seen the series, and I showed her all 8 episodes, and by the time she was through, she was on the F Jax Club. She was like, she had a very visceral reaction. She was like, she's a selfish bee, and she led him on. But I told her a couple things that predictions that I made as I was watching it came through, because one of the things that jumped out at me was when Damon took her phone. When he went through her phone and then he deleted the messages, I said, I told her, I said, I think he's the one that had her tied up in gang. She was like, no, it's probably the security guard. I said, no. I said, because to me, that's a red flag.
Oh, definitely.
I said, no man should be going through my phone. If he ain't assassinating a husband, you should not be going through my phone and chasing. I mean, and erasing my messages.
But y'all do that all the time, too. Women do that all the time with men. They do it all the time.
Some women, I don't do that.
Well, I'm not saying all women are all men. I'm just saying.
But I'm saying, men,
for the most part, women do that all the time.
But they weren't if you're not in a committed relationship with this person, like he knew what it was.
No, he
especially she said it was strictly sexual.
After
there's no reason why he should be going through her phone.
Tiff, that was after that man had a couple of bites of that forbidden fruit.
But that was a red flag to me.
It was. But here's my point. That man was already hooked before she said to him, you know what this is. No, that was hooked. He was hooked. And he didn't hear words. He didn't hear words she said.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That was a red flag. The other red flag was when he showed up at the house and he beat Will down. Because we were like, what was he doing there? And he popped up and then and I said, this dude is obsessed. And I said, he's the one that's gonna have her tied up and gagged.
And at that point, there was really nothing she could do, because the man was already Michael Ealy had already made his mind up what he was going to do, because he knew. I'm sorry. Let me not put his work name up there. But I'm talking about Damon. Damon already knew what he was going to do long before he got to that house. That was Damon. As far as Damon was concerned, And and he kind of he kind of related to it a couple of times. He wanted Lewis out of her life. He wanted any man associated with her out of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there, when you talk about red flags, and like he knew she was married, and he wanted her to pretend as if she was single and free.
But I do like how they set up this storyline, because we knew from the very first episode that Jax had gotten kidnapped and tied up and bound somewhere, isolated. So we knew that at some point in the story we were going to have Jax in the middle of some mess, and we had to figure out who it was from the beginning. So I like how they kind of set that suspensefulness up, because this is kind of like one of those whodunit type shows. And we have these dual storylines where you have the storyline with Brayden and Kalisha and that whodunit story. But then you also have Jax's storyline with her being tied up somewhere. And we're like, okay, who did that? And so it's like these dual suspenseful storylines going on at the same time, and you kind of trying to figure it out. And it's pointing to so many different people. There's all of these people that could have possibly done it. So I did like how the storytelling unfolded. Mm-hmm. And then if we go into, her case, we kind of briefly mentioned it, but if we go into more detail about the case with Brayden and Kalisha, they were.
Before you do that, I just want to say about CJ, Damon's brother. CJ peeped her card from day one, and he was trying to tell Damon to leave that chick alone, because he knew what she was. And so it wasn't like Damon wasn't getting some advice from he was getting good advice, but he didn't take his brother's heed. He didn't heed his brother's words. He was with him.
Because he fired him and everything. How you fire your brother? He need a job. He's on parole and everything, and you fire him, leave him with nothing, and you were exposing him to something that could potentially send him back to the bench.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the brother never had his best interest at heart. The brother was very selfish and kind of like my way or the highway type situation, and he didn't want the woman getting in the way of their illegal dealings.
True.
And especially the fact that she was a lawyer. So that was his deal. He never, it wasn't out of the best interest for Damon, and it was about his own self-interest.
Okay.
Plus he saw he could see how pressed Damon was, because Damon was practically running out the shop when she came to get him and stuff. See, so he knew his nose was open. He was like, oh Lord, he ain't gonna be able to focus. This woman got him open. So that was another reason why he didn't like him dealing with her.
Yeah. And so if we kind of jump into the storyline of Brayden's case, because he's this successful business owner, and he had been having another extramarital affair we talk about in the show. Brayden was also a married man who was sleeping around with his colleagues. So it's like all of these scandals going on in this show. And eventually we do find out that Kalisha, who was the employee that Brayden was sleeping with, she ends up murdered in her own home. And her husband is trying to investigate the situation. Brayden's wife is trying to help out in the situation so that we can figure out who did this to Kalisha. And of course, Kalisha's cousin is somebody who is very close to her, and she is very determined to figure out, the culprit in the case. And so she's putting the pressure on Jax. And she's also putting the pressure on, the lawyer that's representing for the family, for Kalisha. And so it's all of these different things going on, where you have the fingers pointing at Brayden, saying that because he was sleeping with Kalisha, he did it. And then there's also the other employee who was trying to steal the business from up under Brayden. So he was another person that was a suspect. And of course, they're going to look at the spouse. So her husband was questioned at one point. And Brayden's wife, I kind of eyed her for a second too, because she was a little suspect.
Oh yeah.
She was
at one point.
In fact, I thought she might have been the one that because she was also.
I saw her and Theo.
Yeah, because she was colluding with that other lawyer. I can't think of his name. She was trying to get him involved.
rich or whatever.
Yeah. So she was, so when I saw that, I'm like, okay, this chick she ain't all the way that. So I'm figuring that she might have had something to do with it, but turns out.
Here's where the tide turned for me. Because at first I thought Braden was innocent.
Right.
But when they had that exchange, it was a couple things. And my same friend that I told you that had the visceral reaction, I told her that Braden was the killer too. And she was like, no, I think he's innocent. I said, no, I said, because I had seen a similar show that came on last year. It was a limited series, and I can't remember the name, but it had Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant in it, and it was really good. And he was accused of murder. And for a time it looked like he was innocent, but at the end it turned out he did it all along. And that's what I told her. I was like, I think it's him. I think Braden did it. Is it because when they had the incident in the garage, the way he when he had exchange with his wife, and he was like, say it again, like the way I said, oh, he got a violent side to him. That
yes.
And then when I saw how easily he could lie. Like when she said, he told her, oh, you're my center. And then in court, it turned out he said the same thing to Alicia. So when I said it, I was like, this N-word did it.
Yeah, because
he did it.
There was little signs along the way that let you see, because at first, like he said, he was painted as this upstanding businessman. He had his mom come to court and testify to his, likeness, and saying that he was a great son and he was very anti-violent and everything like that. But then more and more you start seeing, especially the way he kind of pushed up on Jax and was making sexual advances at her. It's clear that he was kind of out of control sexually. And so you could start believing more and more that it was him.
Well, but the thing to me was, and I guess like you, Tiff, at first I thought he was innocent, and I pretty much thought he was innocent throughout until we got to the NDA and who actually signed it. Remember, it didn't make much sense for him to kill the woman, because figuring what we thought we knew, that she had signed the NDA. So it never made sense why he would kill her until we found out, forged the name or something. But so,
when I saw the glimpses in his personality and stuff, I was like, he got another side. I was like, he did it.
And I thought that other side was basically out of arrogance and the power he had as being CEO of a company. And, and I kind of triggered all that to that, he's this big, powerful man and a little guy. So he's got Napoleon issues. And I figured, so maybe that all of that is what we were seeing in spurts. But until we found out about the truth about the NDA, that's when I had to come.
I saw them glimpses and then how easily he can lie. I was like, yeah. I was like, this one, watch this one. And then what was interesting about the storyline is the racial undercurrents. Because when he first came, he didn't want to deal with Jax. He was only wanting to deal with the white lawyer. Like he was he was very disrespectful to Jax until it was time. Yeah, he was very sexist. He was sexist, and I saw some interviews, when the series first started with Sean Patrick Thomas and all that, and he even talked about that, like about how he viewed, Jax's character, like how Braden viewed the character, and it was offensive, and it reminded me of a book I read by B.B. Moore Campbell called I think it was Brothers and Sisters, and she was working with a guy just like that in the field, and he was a brother that had come from the hood and had made it. They were in the banking industry, and he only dated white women because black women reminded him of where he came from, and he wanted to keep that in his rearview mirror. So he was that way, and so I felt that with Braden's character at first, the way he was treating Jax.
Right, until he seen how sharp she was. Because she's very qualified.
But when it was to his benefit, because she still got him off. And he was guilty as I don't know what. And you know how difficult that is for her.
I think he had that white syndrome. I mean, he married a white woman. He sees this white attorney versus a black attorney. And so I'm going to go with the white attorney because, white's right. And so
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that to me was more bigotry than racism, because he figured that I'm in the white member. I got a white card membership, so I'm gonna keep my membership going with this white attorney until he found out that Jax could run rings around most of them.
Yeah, it wasn't his area. Rich is not a criminal. Like, it was contract law, whatever, cool. Exactly. But she was the criminal attorney, and I think we talk about how Jax wasn't prioritizing the family and all that stuff. I think she became driven as she was after she lost that case with Damon.
Yes.
Because the fact she was invested in that case too. And the fact that he went to jail for something that he didn't do and she represented him. You see, after that, she quit stopped becoming a public defender and everything. And I think that drove her to become the best. Like, I'm not going to have another loss on my watch, And I think that's what I think that helped shape who she is too.
Right. Public offenders have stacks of cases. They don't have time to litigate down to the finality of things. And what she wanted them to do was just take a plea. And for most political attorney, I mean, not political, but
public
defenders, public defenders, because of their caseload is so heavy, and they have timelines that they got to get these things completed. They plead out. They do a lot of pleading out. They don't even want to really get that deep into the case. And I think when she realized that that's what happened with him, and he had to go to jail for her inability or unwillingness to go deep into the case because of her caseload, that's when she decided, okay.
That's not what happened. He said he wanted to fight. She told him to take the plea.
No, I
know
he
wanted to fight, and she told him how risky it was, especially when the dude told him the evidence that they had with his fingerprints and stuff. She knew it was a long shot, and that's why she told him to take the plea.
And she also knew that she didn't have time to delve that deep into try to saving him. That's why I think she wanted him to take the plea. He wanted to fight, but not realizing that public defenders don't have the resources and the time to fight in the fashion that they would ordinarily have. So I think that and it's not disagreeing with you, it's just really saying the same thing. I think that because of it,
she did the best she could, but with the hand she was dealt.
And that's why
because that guy got up there and lied too. The one that was supposed to be his friend.
Right. And so she said, bunk this, I'm gonna get out and actually do right by my clients. And therefore, your 24/7 is born. On a 9 to 5, you do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, and that's why even though at the end of the trial with Brayden, you could tell that she knew the truth, but she was conflicted because she was kind of like, I'm representing this man who actually did this, and I'm helping him lie to these people. You could tell that she was conflicted, but she still went through with it because of her drive to win.
Well,
because they still have a right to defense. If you throw it, then
confidence.
Right.
Yeah, that you could be brought up.
No, attorney-client privilege. She had no choice. She couldn't, she couldn't do anything to expose him. So she had to keep her mouth shut and just play the game. But
she got him at the end, though.
Yes, she did.
She made sure that stuff about the records got into the right hands. So even though she did defend him and stuff, she made sure that that other information about his business got into the right hands.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she definitely made sure that he got his due. It's gonna come back around him because he's not out of the woods yet. But see, that's why that tension that brewed between Jax and Brayden at the end had me like, wait, did Brayden kidnap her or tie her up? Because it was kind of like it was a toss-up for me between Brayden and Damon. But to see how things ended for Damon, I was a little like, I kind of wish he would have stuck around because I would have loved to see. I know the storyline already had kind of drug out a little bit long with that relationship, but I did like Michael Ealy in this show, so it was sad to see him take himself out.
I did too.
And so yeah, he actually ended up committing suicide, which I wonder how this affects Jax going forward.
Yeah.
Because she really had she wasn't in love with him, but she had feelings for that man.
She did.
And it's sad to see his life turn out the way it did after he had already gone to jail for 16 years, and she couldn't help him in that regard, to see him also end up taking his own life at the end. I know that has to weigh heavily on her. And then she and Lewis actually decided that they would try to work things out. They would attend couples therapy. And I was like, I don't know if they can get past all of that stuff that she had already done. It's like the damage was so deep and it was so overwhelming. It was like she didn't just do it once. She did it multiple times with multiple people. And if I'm Lewis, I don't know if couples therapy is going to help that, especially if she continues to prioritize work, because we've seen that her friend at the end ended up killing her husband. So it looked like she's going to be representing another murder.
Yes. Well, her husband was a trip too.
Yeah, he was a trip.
He was.
But you know what? I think he can get over it, because of the fact that I don't know what kind of man it takes to watch your wife boning the guard. And if you can get over that, you can get over a lot of things. So
well, he has since stepped out too. So
yeah, he did. But I'm just saying, if you can get over that, you can get over anything.
So they both have some forgiving to do.
Yeah,
they do.
And the thing is, I mean, with counseling, you never know. Like I said, that story Addicted that I was talking about, that woman had done a whole lot too. She had done a whole lot. Somebody even got killed behind her. Somebody got obsessed, just like Damon. And it was a lot of circumstances that happened because of her reckless behavior. But at the end, when they went to counseling, she committed to counseling and she did better, and her husband committed to counseling too. They were able to work through it and come through having a happier marriage, healthier too, because the husband became more open sexually and stuff. She now had boundaries too, because she knew where that trauma came from. So they were able to come out on the other side of it, a stronger couple.
Right.
So if they both commit and they agree to leave the past in the past, they can move forward.
Well, I think the infidelity is something that they can probably get through, since they both have committed their wrongs. The thing that is going to be the issue for them is how Jax prioritizes work, because she's not going to get any less busy.
Right.
She's getting more and more high profile cases. And like, that's not stuff that she's going to stop doing. She's not going to just quit work and stop prioritizing her career. And that seems to be the biggest point of conflict between those two. And so if Lewis can't come around to the fact that this is just what it's going to be, then I don't see them reconciling.
I agree. I totally agree.
It's going to be work. It's going to be work.
She comes right off one high profile case right onto another. And if he can accept that, then I think the challenge is over. But
now, my other question too was, is it a conflict of interest to represent your friend?
Well, you would think that you would want to step away from it, but then again, I wouldn't call it a conflict of interest, because it's not something between the two of them. She's just representing her friend. My question is, how do you do that? Because high profile cases are expensive. Now, do you charge her in the same vein that you would?
Well, she's rich, but she was married to this former ball player that she can afford to pay.
I know,
but JT was also friends with Lewis, so that's another conflict in her and Jackson Lewis's marriage.
There's going to be some bias there.
No,
and we also seen the interactions between she and her husband, and how he kind of dogged her out. He left her on the curb and drove off. He had been kind of emotionally abusive. He was
abusive.
Well, come to think of it, I guess with Lewis and her now deceased husband were friends. Yeah, that's going to be messy. I would, if I was she, I'd walk away from that, because
but that's her girl. Because you see, they go back to college and stuff. Like that's gonna be messy.
That's really
messy. But you saw she had a bruise on her face too.
Yep.
So the husband had hit her. I think that they could say it was self-defense.
Right.
Yeah, but it's funny. There's in Latin America, in about 15 other countries, and there's something called femicide or femicide.
Oh, no, yeah, femicide.
And it's interesting. I don't know if that's something that we have here in America.
Yes.
But it stands to a point where it becomes a hate crime to kill a woman. I don't know. Because you were struck in the face, I'm not sure if force met
that's
force.
So yeah, he's a man. He's a man. She's a woman.
I agree. I mean, I'm not now. Listen, because I don't want any bad karma. But I'm not saying that a man. Well, first of all, a man should never put his hands on a woman unless you are trying to desperately save your own life. But there are women out here that take you out. Now, if come on, that's reality. But I just don't know if, and until we get more information about it, I can't say whether her being harmed is a case for murder. So, I mean, murder carries a high, it's a high profile with murder. So
if he put,
I mean, like for instance, a man can slap you. Does he deserve to be killed because he slapped you?
I'm not saying anybody deserves to be killed, but if you feel that your life is threatened and he put hands on her and that was like, and say they were tussling over the gun, or she went and got the gun and she shot him out of self, it's like,
well, like
they wouldn't consider it. At least they would probably say that it was like involuntary manslaughter or
I could agree with
manslaughter. I don't think that they would say to her like, oh, cold-blooded murder when she's being attacked by her husband.
I can agree with manslaughter, but the thing is, you knew what kind of guy he was. The dude almost made you walk home. I mean, I'm sure that the situations that those situations have occurred multiple times in that household. So for you to even stay with a man that is abusing you over and over again, in some sense,
don't say that. Don't say that because we'll get in trouble because there are some people who.
I'm going to park it right there. I'm not driving.
Yeah, let's leave that conversation for season 2.
I'm going to park it right there. Like that bus ain't going no further until season 2.
But what I will say is it does seem like they did set it up to be like a domestic violence situation where she was defending herself. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how season 2 goes. I'm really hoping that we hear an announcement very soon for a season 2, because this was a phenomenal show, a great first season. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of this cast in action because they were phenomenal. Yes. And I, like I said, I really enjoyed the storytelling as well.
I did too.
Yeah, so I kind of want to put a bow on this because we've been going a little long, but I encourage anybody who has not watched the show yet, you please go on Hulu, get your subscription and watch this show. It is that good. I binge watched it and then I followed for each week after because then that's the other thing I do like about this show, because it's not like where they put the whole series out at the same time. They put a new episode out each week on Hulu, and that kind of gives us the opportunity to kind of ponder on things and try to come up with our predictions as well. So I do like that they do it week by week. And I just, like I said, I'm hoping that we hear soon that we are getting this announcement for season 2. So congratulations to all involved. I mean, a very, very solid cast. Everybody held their ground. So incredibly talented, like I said, even behind the scenes, all of the folks involved with the writing team and the production and directing, I mean, all around phenomenal. So check out this show if you have not already, like I said. And another mention that I'll throw in there of somebody who can get the hands for this episode, the friend that actually slept with Lewis, because she started out as Jax's friend. And you sleep
or
with
she was in the group.
Yeah, she was in
that chick. That chick. I considered her to be a fake friend, and my friend and I had an exchange about that because she was like, she doesn't owe Jax any loyalty, and I'm like, that's still phony to be in her face.
Look.
I don't think they were friend, but they were part of that. I think their kids went to school together, and stuff like that. So they were associates. It was foul.
Hey, do me a favor. Do me a favor. Tell your friend I like her. I like the way. Tell your friend she all right with me.
Oh, listen, I already know you don't care about the girl code. That's why.
I
that's why you're saying that.
I know. You know that.
You don't care about the girl code.
Now, some other mentions of folks in the show who I think can get the game ball. I'm definitely giving it to Daniel, her assistant. And also Crystal. They did a good job of, helping Jax along with her cases and keeping her on track. And Daniel was really willing to do a lot of the dirty work to get evidence and details for Jax's defense. So I think they can get the game ball for this show. So shout out to them. You guys have any other comments you want to throw out there before we close out?
Just can't wait for season 2.
Yeah, I can't wait for season 2.
Okay. So everyone, if you have seen the show, drop down in the comment section and give us your thoughts about the series. Please let us know your predictions for next season as well. And make sure you click the subscribe button so that you are tuned into everything that we put out on this channel. Click that notification bell and the subscribe button. Follow us on social media as well. We are at The Spot Real Talk on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We're everywhere. So make sure you give us a follow there as well. And be tuned in next week when we come back to discuss another show. And we're actually thinking of doing Black Panther, the movie Black Panther 2. Which has been getting a lot of viewership amongst the people. So I think that's a proper proper movie to go ahead and discuss because there's a lot to unpack there as well. So be back here next week, same time, same place. And make sure you're subscribed to us because you're not going to want to miss out on any content. So on that note, we will call it a night and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Drip Eliante pulling up, feeling like Harry Belafonte. Look at my racks, feel like Serena went hit from the back. Swing, pull like Jim, waves on swim, and a rock Timbs with the tech. Butterfly doors on the Tesla, I just spend shit on gas.
$150, I be at the strippy club. Whiskey sippy cup, I be on like Disney Plus. Empress New Grove, on my cheese blue. Bitch got a twin, and she let me hit it. Hold up. Freaky little mommy wanna suck me till I sleep.